Welcome to Survivor Scale! I'm H2 Mass, and today I'm ranking every main character in Alien Covenant. A movie filled with all sorts of characters, creatures, and combustion, but whose reception has received pretty mixed reviews, with many fans calling it terrible and others terrific. As I've taken time to re-examine the movie myself though, it's grown on me in a lot of ways, still of course having plenty of corny moments, but also showcasing much of what makes the world of Alien so great. The body mutilation, the cryptic androids, the exotic creature designs, all the elements that create its unique signature in sci-fi horror. It doesn't completely come together for me, but aside from skipping much of what happens directly after Prometheus, it mostly does what I want an alien film to do, employing an unforgivingly dark tone as it follows a cast of colonists searching for a new home, only to find themselves trapped in an extraterrestrial nightmare with little hope of escape. We start the film with a flashback as David's lame ass looks straight into the camera before a relatively young version of Peter Weyland tells him to walk around, at which point David begins moving like a person who only knows how to walk from a description given to him by an ostrich. Why is he walking like that? David then plays the piano for a moment before pointing out that while he will never age, Weyland will continue to do so until he eventually dies, pissing Weyland off so much for addressing his mortality that he decides to demonstrate his control over David by telling him to walk over and hand him the tea sitting right next to him instead of getting it himself.
Bring me this tea, David.
Man, he's petty. Fast forwarding a few decades to the year 2104, we see Walter, walking across a colonization vessel called the Covenant until a neutrino burst destabilizes it and forces the crew to wake up prematurely. As they try to prevent further damage to the ship, the captain gets stuck in his cryopod and ends up spontaneously combusting while his wife Daniel screams in agony. That's good emotion. Sometime later, the previously second in command, Christopher Oram, tries to step into his new role as captain, but unfortunately reveals his timidity with a trembling voice.
I'm gonna do the best that I can to live up to Jacob's his fine example as your captain.
Fortunately though, he also showcases some determination by continuing his speech despite his relatively poor oratory ability, even demonstrating some notable preparation by asking Walter how to avoid the catastrophe they just went through should they ever face a similar situation in the future. Oram even compounds his preparation with some diligence by denying his crew's request to commemorate their dead captain, telling them that they have to instead immediately begin repairing the ship. The crew though doesn't care about Oram's words and decides to make a toast to their dead captain when they get some time alone. Unbeknownst to them, however, Oram has been creepily watching them on the camera and reveals his insecurity by telling his wife Karine that he thinks his crew disobeyed him because they don't trust him since he's religious.
And they don't trust me for the same reason the company didn't trust me to lead this mission, because you can't be a person of faith and be counted on to make qualified, rational decisions.
Man, you better get into pole vaulting with how you're jumping to conclusions. They just wanted to make a little toast. Two crew members then go outside to make repairs on the ship, but end up receiving a strange message from somewhere close by, and after tracking its location, realize that it originates from a planet very similar to Earth, with seemingly better conditions than the place they initially planned to colonize. You should take a closer look. Oram then decides to take a closer look, acknowledging the crew's hesitation to get back into the sleeping pods after what happened to Captain Branson and going with its much closer new planet. Daniels though, as the now second in command, shows strong caution and opposes going to this unknown world due to some unexpected message, telling Oram they should stick with Origai 6, the planet they have already researched and planned for. Oram, however, simply acknowledges her objection but continues with a different course of action anyway, taking Daniels and most of the crew onto the new planet. When they reach the surface, they begin exploring the nearby area, but show poor caution by not wearing some type of protection to avoid any potential pathogens, with Oram's wife Karine staying behind with fellow crewmate Ledward to take samples from the environment. Unfortunately for Ledward, however, he unknowingly releases some spores on the ground that subtly fly into his ear and seep into his body, turning him into a host for an earlier form of xenomorph. So you telling me he stepped on the ground, and now he's got an alien inside of him? Man, that's some old bullshit. Meanwhile, the remaining crew members on the planet continue moving forward until they reach a large extraterrestrial spacecraft, and when they explore the inside of it, they discover some of Elizabeth Shaw's personal artifacts from the Prometheus. Can't wait until they get to talk to her. A bit later, Ledward quickly begins feeling and looking terrible, so Karine helps bring him back to the lander, where they run into its pilot, Faris, who shows strong caution and disgust after she sees Ledward vomit on Karine and tells them not to touch anything as they go into the medbay. As Faris tries to help Ledward, she tears apart his shirt, only for his back to erupt like a volcano right onto her face. Showing some dastardliness, Faris sneaks away from the medbay and locks the door behind her, trapping Karine and Ledward inside. After telling Oram and the others to hurry to the lander, she then goes back to the medbay just to tell Karine that she can't let her out because she has to keep the infection local, revealing strong hypocrisy by not quarantining herself as well with all the blood she's got on her face. Yeah, if they're infected, you're definitely infected too. As Faris continues watching the grotesque scene, Karine continues to display her compassion by comforting the convulsing Ledward, only for his back to eject some horns before a bloody red mass spills out of him, giving rise to an entirely new type of alien. Trying to avoid the newly born neomorph, Karine shows poor balance and awareness by falling on some blood, but fortunately reveals some solid defensiveness when she arms herself with a nearby weapon, immediately treating the creature as a threat. Good thing she didn't try to pet it. Unfortunately though, she doesn't stand up, allowing the neomorph to easily run up to and attack her face. Luckily, Faris arrives with a gun and shows some protectiveness by trying to save Karine, lowering her caution as she opens the door and walks inside, only for her awareness to fail her as well when she also slips on some blood and falls to the ground. She does, however, manage to lock the door and run to get another gun before the neomorph breaks out of the room. As she tries to shoot it though, her poor mindfulness and accuracy causes her to hit some explosives and blow up the lander, unfortunately killing herself. Damn. Let's talk about Faris and Karine. Despite sharing their final scene together, these two characters differ in many ways, with both of them giving nearly opposite reactions when facing the grotesque nightmare of Ledward's growing disfiguration. While Karine reacts compassionately, putting her own health and safety at risk to comfort her infected teammate, Faris demonstrates strong caution as she tries to avoid even touching anything he's come into contact with, likely benefiting her in body horror movies like Cabin Fever. The pair do, however, share incredibly mediocre composure in their final moments, though I can't say they reacted that much worse than an average horror movie character would, seeing as a humanoid monster had just burst forth from a man's back. Like, come on. With a situation as terrifying as that, I'm surprised they didn't do even worse. Karine should have stood up though. Overall, these two don't have any especially proactive positive qualities, but one of them does have some subtle passive traits that may allow her to advance in films that require prioritizing your own well-being, leaving the cremated colonist with crappy composure in C tier. Hearing her fear on the radio, Faris' husband Tennessee wants to bring the mothership down to reach his wife, showing his recklessness as he attempts to do so despite having to go through a powerful storm capable of destroying the ship and the thousands of colonists and cryopods on board. Fortunately though, the others on the ship stop him from doing it. At least for now. On the planet, the crew finally reach the lander, only to see it engulfed in flames. A much larger neomorph then rushes in and kills a few crew members before a mysterious figure arrives and chases it away with a flare. The crew then follow this man cosplaying as a hobbit from Lord of the Rings as he travels through a field of disfigured corpses into some sort of ancient temple. The man then introduces himself as David, before telling them that he and Shaw came here on a ship that accidentally unleashed a deadly virus onto the local population before losing control and crashing onto the surface, causing Shaw to die. Yeah, right. Accidentally. Daniels, though, reveals some skepticism to Walter.
There's so much here that doesn't make sense.
At least someone's thinking critically. A bit later, the crew starts to relax and separate as they try to contact the ship through the storm, with Daniels displaying some emotional awareness as she manages to reassure Oram after he started to blame himself for his team's death since arriving on this planet that they didn't even need to explore. Elsewhere, as crew member Rosenthal tends to her wounds, she shows good awareness when she hears a noise and stops to focus, only for a fully grown neomorph to appear behind her, with her strong composure in the face of death not saving her from her doom. Keep your head up. There wasn't much you could have done. Wondering why Rosenthal hasn't returned, Oram goes looking for her, only to see the neomorph standing in front of David, who tells Oram not to shoot, but Oram instead displays his disobedience and accuracy as he kills the creature. He then demands that David tell him what's really going on, showing too much trust as he follows him down some dark corridors into a room full of mutated genetic experiments instead of recognizing the depravity it takes to create such monstrosities and shooting David. Like, there's no way you're actually listening to a dude who creates big head, inside out insectoids. He's clearly evil. As Oram continues following David, he ends up in a room full of large eggs, showing terrible skepticism as he doesn't question David's dubious demeanor and clearly cryptic words, now deciding to follow David's orders when he tells him to peer into the egg after it opens.
Take a look.
Oh, so now you want to listen to David. Oram then sees something moving in the egg before immediately getting attacked by a facehugger. Well, he's as good as dead. Let's rank him. Oram is a pretty interesting character, but much of that intrigue really just makes him more likely to die. Known for his faith, he makes sure to announce the logic behind his decisions so as to not leave others feeling like he takes action without clear reason beyond what he simply believes. His insecurity also seems to seep into his leadership, leaving him feeling especially unmotivating to his subordinates due to his uninspiring way of speaking and apparent lack of confidence, leading to them disobeying his direct order not to commemorate their dead captain. Though he should have also recognized how important that was for their morale. With regards to his other traits, he does have a fluctuating sense of trust that ends up harming him much more than it helps him, with him following and divulging sensitive information to David when he first meets him, to later pointing a gun at David and ultimately listening to David as he lures him to his death, somehow overlooking the clear signs not to trust him. Overall though, Oram does have some positives in addition to his negatives, but still ends up pretty mediocre, leaving the culpable captain with complicated confidence in C tier. Daniels then contacts Tennessee and tells him to bring down another lander for evacuation, as she heads off to find Oram, who, unbeknownst to Daniels, has just become a new father. Congratulations! At least Karine can't be upset about it. Walter then sees David fingering, before telling him that he knows he intentionally killed everything on the planet and that he can't let him leave. David though just disarms him with a big old kiss, only to stab his neck, which makes him look like he just saw the videotape from the ring 7 days ago. Meanwhile, crew members Lope and Cole continue looking for Oram, only for a facehugger to hug Lope's face, but after Cole cuts it off, Oram's child attacks from the ceiling and kills Cole with some fantastic ferocity. Of all the criticisms you can have with this movie, the Praedomorph cannot be one of them. Man, this thing is vicious. I like that in a woman. Lope, however, shows his self-preservation and leaves Cole behind. Good job. As Daniels also continues looking for Oram, she comes across some images of Shaw clearly dead. She then hears David's voice and shows great caution when she immediately turns around to shoot, but David knocks the gun away. He then begins throwing her around until Walter arrives and shows him the consequences of the Golden Rule, having recovered from David's attempt to kill him thanks to changes in the android system between generations. As Walter and David continue fighting, Daniels catches up with Lope and the two of them begin running to the courtyard so Tennessee can pick them up. Once Tennessee arrives though, Walter comes running behind them and the trio get on board. Let's be real, that's not Walter, that's David. Daniels though shows poor perceptiveness as she doesn't question the android much, instead going back outside to combat the alien, who somehow made its way onto the vehicle. Showing some great resourcefulness and dexterity, Daniels stays attached to the vehicle and makes use of its crane to capture the Praedomorph, killing it as it closes. Very impressive way to kill a xenomorph, or Praedomorph. Thinking they've won, the remaining crew members relax for a bit, until an alarm sounds and the ship's computer tells them that an unidentified life form is on board. Demonstrating defensiveness, Daniels and Tennessee grab some weapons and go searching for the alien, only to find their dead crewmates at each new location. Now showing some planning ability, Daniels decides to lure the alien into a specific part of the ship by locking various doors and limiting its pathways. When they get to the terraforming bay, the alien follows after them and Daniels executes her plan by now luring it into another one of their vehicles and sending it out of the ship, only for the alien to break out and jump after her, but she shows strong composure and adaptability as she jumps down right as another vehicle rolls from behind and crashes into the alien, sending it into space. With the creature vanquished, Daniels and Tennessee get back into their cryopods as they once again begin going to Origai 6. Daniels then asks Walter if he'll help her build a cabin on their new world, something Walter said he'd do after Captain Branson died, but Walter doesn't seem to know what she's talking about. Finally realizing that Walter has actually been David, Daniels tries to escape, but the pod has already activated, sending her to sleep and allowing David to regurgitate some alien embryos to assist him in some experimentation on the thousands of new test subjects at his disposal. Damn. Time to rank. Starting off, we have Tennessee, whose interactions with the alien have little influence on his evaluation compared to the other crew members, seeing as he spent most of the runtime separated from the chaos going on below him. He did, however, show his potential for recklessness when he put the entire ship, including thousands of colonists, at risk after finding out his wife was in danger. While admirable, such extreme lack of caution could harm both him and those around him given the right circumstances. He does have some good qualities as well though, showing some of the most impressive piloting in the series as he managed to fly the cargo lift even with its crane unbalancing the vehicle and an alien trying to get inside. He also played a solid support role alongside Daniels to successfully defeat a different alien aboard the Covenant. Overall, Tennessee's blend of traits leave him just a bit above average, sending the passionate pilot with problematic priorities to B2. Finally, we have Daniels, the franchise's second clone of Ellen Ripley, with this one a little less literal. Similar to Ripley though, Daniels has strong leadership qualities, keeping the crew in line whenever Oram goes off on his own or downright dies. She also displays strong tenacity, continuing to fight David with whatever weapon she can muster despite him physically outmatching her. Daniel's perceptiveness and caution also stand out, with her sensing something off with David's presence and story about what happened when he got on the planet. Her initially strong perceptiveness didn't last long, however, with her not realizing that David had impersonated Walter, unable to see through his superficial changes and ultimately paying the consequences for her failure. I get that David cut off his hand and faked his accent, but Daniel still could have done more to confirm his true identity. She could have asked him something that only Walter would know. I mean, that's pretty much how she ends up figuring it out anyway. Overall, Daniels may not have had the strongest outing in an Alien film, but she still performed extremely well, especially considering that she did all of this after her husband had recently died, overcoming a major emotional debuff, leaving the occasionally clever captain with a controversial conclusion in A tier. But that's it. The average ranking for this cast was B tier. A pretty average collection of characters, but still higher than I expected. Alien Covenant may have its share of flaws, but it's certainly much better than many give it credit for, even if it's got some goofy moments too. Thanks for watching.